The time has come for my people to go.
I'm not a queen, I'm a servant of the people. I'm not a king, I'm a servant of the people. It's what the people demand. We gonna keep fighting till we get that land. I'm not a queen, I'm a servant of the people. I'm not a king, I'm a servant of the people. It's time to rise to get what we want. We got to organize. Greetings all! Welcome to the 29th episode of Pantsula Podcast. Thank you for sticking with us in this work. And if you're seeing or hearing us for the first time, welcome. I am Jamilah, and I am an organizer with the All African People's Revolutionary Party. We are organizing around the world to build this party with the objective of achieving Pan-Africanism, which is a unified Africa under scientific socialism. We can only achieve what is beneficial for humanity through organized collective struggle and political education. And this podcast, as well as the others our organization presents, is one of the ways we are working on achieving this objective. Before we begin our episodes, we take time to honor those revolutionary ancestors whose shoulders we stand on in this work. Those ancestors who inspired us and made it possible for us to do this work today. On this day, we honor Louise Thompson Patterson, Carlota and Rosa Castellanos. Louise Thompson Patterson was a lifelong communist and organizer. Attending UC Berkeley in California, she became inspired to do activist work after seeing W.E.B. Du Bois speak. One of her first major moments in activism was at the Hampton Institute in Virginia, where as a teacher, she supported a student revolt against a slew of racist policies. Her active support of the students led to her firing soon after that, within a year of her being hired. Her apartment in Harlem, New York, was used as a cultural and organizing space through the Vanguard group, which she founded. She also founded Friends of the Soviet Union at her Harlem base. After her work in the USSR, where she was invited to do cultural work, she returned to the US, where she founded the Harlem Suitcase Theater with Langston Hughes. Her work never ceased, as she also founded the Sojourners for Truth and Justice with Shirley Graham Du Bois and Carlata base. On this day, 25 Julio, or July 26, as we commemorate the birth of the revolutionary fight against the fascist Batista regime in Cuba, we wanted to also honor some ancestors who contributed to that fight and inspired the revolution that was to come. Prior to the 1886 abolition of slavery and the 10 Years' War, Carlata, a Yoruba woman, was forced to work at Triunvirato, a sugar plantation in Cuba. She ended up leading a slave revolt, beginning with her setting fire to the residence of the slave master, as well as the sugar mill. Plans for the revolt on other plantations were communicated by drum. As a result, 5 sugar plantations as well as other areas were affected. Carlata's life was taken while fighting for the liberation of her people. Rosa Castellanos was a freed slave who fought in the 10 Years' War. She was also a medic who treated soldiers injured in battle with herbs. In the midst of the war, she and her husband built a hospital. Another fight for independence ensued after the initial 10 Years' War, and Rosa Castellanos was appointed as a captain of the medical corps at the Santa Rosa Field Hospital. This episode is not only here to honor these ancestral comrades, we are also here to honor Pan-African Women's Day, or PAWD, which is held annually. What is Pan-African Women's Day? Just as we organize around issues we face as Africans in order to achieve self-determination, there are specific issues regarding gender-based violence, in addition to racialized and class-based violence, that are imperative to address in order for everyone to truly participate in the process of self-determination and liberation. The process in Cuba, in order to achieve equality, is called the revolution within the revolution. This is what Cuba calls the struggle for women's equality. In Article 44 of the Cuban Constitution, it states, quote, "The state guarantees women the same opportunities and possibilities as men in order to achieve women's full participation in the development of the country," end quote. Comrades in the PAIGC in Guinea-Bissau named this struggle of fighting not only traditional colonialism, but also the contradiction of gender inequities which existed in the revolutionary struggle as fighting two colonialisms. In order to truly create a revolutionary society in praxis, not just in theory, these contradictions must be addressed. A society cannot yet truly be transformed if gender hierarchies are embedded in it. Or, as Thomas Sankara states, by changing the social order that oppresses women, the revolution creates the conditions for their genuine emancipation. The A-APRP does have a women's wing called the All-African Women's Revolutionary Union, founded in 1980, to address some of these contradictions. We also have an anti-patriarchy task force, as well as anti-patriarchy work study groups in our circles. All of this was possible due to the work of those who established the first Pan-African Women's Day in Dar es Salaam, Tanganyika, now known as Tanzania. In 1961, there was an All-African Women's Conference, or AAWC, held in Guinea-Conakry. The Pan-Africanist Women's Organization, or the PAWO, was established on July 31st, 1962, in order for people to coordinate the work of the various organizing areas. Participating in the conference were organizations and political parties such as the Convention People's Party of Ghana, or the CPP, African Party of Independence of Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde, or the PAIGC, and the Democratic Party of Guinea of the African Democratic Revolution, or the PDGRDA, as well as countries such as Algeria, Tanzania, and Mali. The Pan-Africanist Women's Organization, or the PAWO, held a Congress in 1970, and there was a declaration for Pan-African Women's Day to be held annually. What are the objectives and claims of Pan-African Women's Day? If you'd like to see the objectives and more, you can go to our international site at aaprp-intl.org. One of the most obvious claims at forming PAWO was to mobilize women in countries that were still colonized to fight for their liberation. Most Africans globally are still in colonized spaces, and Africa is still being held as enemy or contested zones. Please check out our other episodes for further explanation of what enemy and contested zones mean. 1. One of the most obvious aims of forming PAWO was to mobilize women in countries that were still colonized to fight for their liberation. Most Africans globally are still in colonized spaces, and Africa is still being held as enemy or contested zones. Please check our other episodes for further explanation of what enemy and contested zones mean. 2. To continue the struggle for recognition and application of the right of African women to participate in decision-making in the field of political, economic, cultural, and social life, both at national and international levels, and particularly to be able to express their opinion in laws regarding the welfare of women and children. 3. To follow the development and to contribute to the improvement of political and socio-cultural aspects on women and children in member countries and disseminate the results of research undertaken in these fields by PAWO or by member countries through documents and existing media. 4. Support action taken at national and international levels aimed at ending serious human rights violation and violence against women. 5. Support all the actions of African governments. Obviously, this means to support the liberation struggle and to also have a process of criticism and self-criticism because transformation. 6. Promote the effective unity among African states through friendship and cooperation for a genuine peace. 7. Establish continuous relations of friendship and cooperation between African women and women all over the world. 8. support the internal cooperation, and participate in all actions for disarmament and consolidation of peace in Africa and worldwide. How do we reach this objective? We must reject individualism and competition inspired by capitalist principles. We must practice cooperation. As we recognize the war on our people by these systems of oppression and marginalization, we must not practice these same tools of war upon ourselves. We must reject these systems which encourage gender-based violence, kidnapping, and other forms of abuse. We must recognize the inequities of labor deriving from that system of capitalism and organize to rectify these contradictions. We must wage ideological struggle. We must engage in a solid work study / political education process. We must remember that our enemies are doing the same, and while they clearly have more financial resources to do so, which is why the global stranglehold has been so effective, our ancestors who waged these same struggles against the enemy didn't have much either. We must wage principled struggle. Again, we cannot use the same tactics as the enemy in order to reach our objectives. Understand that our struggle is global. Africans are everywhere around the world. Understand that everywhere Africans are, the triple oppression of women and marginalized genders of racism, classism, and sexism / misogyny exist. We must organize around transformative ways to create a society and environment where all are valued. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. I know it was really quick, and it was really short, much shorter than every single one of our other episodes. But we wanted to honor Pan-African Women's Day, and we wanted to invite you in our International Pan-African Women's Day program. And that's going to be held on July 31st. If you have not registered, please do so. The link will be in the description. We hope to see you there, and we hope you'll be able to find our various podcasts and programs beneficial. So we have the Forward Ever podcast, which is on Spotify. Our comrades in the New Mexico / PAWD territory chapter have a weekly podcast on Thursdays. Our comrades Shakuda and Ajamu do a weekly Sunday seminar series. And our comrades Mzuri and Halimatu do a monthly podcast called Revolutionary African Women. All of these podcasts and programs, of course, will be listed in the description. And once again, we ask, demand that you join an organization. If you in any way care about humanity and understand the work that needs to be done to ensure the people's liberation. Do not sit on the sidelines discussing how the system is horrible. If all you're doing is complaining about how the system is bad, your inaction is ultimately participating in what you complain about. Forward ever, backwards never.